You think the pressure to be beautiful is tough now? With all the filters, fad diets, and cosmetic procedures? Well, what if getting the perfect look meant slathering your skin with lead until it peeled off in sheets? Or what if it meant intentionally breaking the bones in your feet and binding them so tightly they'd never grow again? Or plucking your hairline back to the middle of your scalp, one agonizing hair at a time? Throughout history, the price of beauty wasn't just pain, it was often death. Today, we're digging up the deadliest beauty rituals ever practiced. From the palaces of Elizabethan England to the imperial courts of ancient China, the search for the perfect look has pushed people to some truly unimaginable extremes. The beauty standards we chase today might feel demanding, but they have nothing on the lethal routines our ancestors were willing to endure. We're about to pull back the curtain on the most shocking and hazardous things people did in the name of being beautiful. We'll explore how a ghostly white complexion could literally kill you, how a tiny waist could crush your organs, and how some women were practically eating poison for breakfast, all for a chance at being seen as beautiful. So get ready, because we're about to explore a side of history that's as gruesome as it is glamorous. First up, let's head to Renaissance Europe, a time of incredible art and incredibly toxic makeup. Back in the 16th and 17th centuries, one of the most desirable things for an aristocratic woman was a perfectly smooth, white complexion. This wasn't just a trend, it was a status symbol. A pale face told the world you were rich enough to not have to work in the sun. To get this ghostly pallor, the elite used a cosmetic called Venetian ceruse. It was sold as the best, most exclusive skin whitener you could buy, but it was basically just a high-quality paste of white lead and vinegar. Women would layer this thick, white paint onto their faces, necks, and chests to hide everything from freckles to smallpox scars. There was just one huge problem. The lead was a powerful poison. With repeated use, it soaked through the skin, leading to a horrifying list of symptoms. It actually caused the skin to rot and scar, which created a vicious cycle. The more damage the makeup did, the more you had to use to cover it all up. It also caused hair loss, especially at the front of the hairline, which may have ironically made the era's high forehead trend even more popular. Internally, the damage was so much worse. Lead poisoning led to neurological problems, muscle paralysis, crippling abdominal pain, and eventually, total organ failure. Maybe the most famous victim of this deadly vanity was Maria Gunning, the Countess of Coventry. A celebrated beauty in 18th century London, she was famous for her devotion to using ceruse. She died in 1760 at just 27 years old, and her death was widely blamed on lead poisoning from her makeup, a condition the public called death by vanity. To make things even worse, many women would pair their lead foundation with a rouge made from cinnabar, a mercury-based mineral, to redden their cheeks and lips, effectively painting their faces with a cocktail of deadly heavy metals. While European women were poisoning themselves from the outside in, a completely different kind of beauty torture was happening on the other side of the world. For almost 1,000 years in China, from the 10th century until it was finally banned in the 20th, the practice of foot binding shaped the lives and bodies of millions of women. The goal was to have a pair of tiny, arched feet, called lotus feet, that were no more than 3 inches long. These tiny feet were seen as the ultimate sign of elegance and sensuality, and were essential for making a good marriage. But the process to get this look was absolutely barbaric. It usually started when a girl was between 4 and 7 years old, before the arch of her foot was fully developed. Her feet would be soaked in warm water or a mixture of herbs to soften them. Then, her toenails were clipped as short as possible, and every toe, except the big one, was broken and folded under the sole of the foot. The arch of the foot was then forcibly broken. Finally, long bandages were wrapped tightly around the feet, pulling the toes and heel together to create that crescent moon shape. The pain was constant and excruciating. The bindings were taken off and put back on every few days, pulled tighter each time to force the foot into an even smaller shape. Infection was the most common and dangerous risk. Ingrown toenails could lead to flesh rotting away, and sometimes toes would fall off completely, a gruesome side effect that was actually seen as a good thing, since it made the foot smaller. For some girls, the constant risk of infection could become a death sentence, leading to septic shock. For those who survived, the result was a lifelong disability. The mangled bones made walking incredibly difficult and painful, forcing women into a distinct, swaying walk known as the lotus gait. Women with bound feet were also at a much higher risk of falling and breaking other bones, especially their hips, as they got older. It's pretty shocking to see the lengths people have gone to for beauty. If you're finding this trip through history as fascinating as it is horrifying, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more dives into the weirdest parts of our past. Let's jump back to Europe, specifically the late Middle Ages and the Renaissance, where we find a beauty standard that was just as painful. During this time, the ideal female face was long and oval, with a very high forehead. Poets of the era praised a high, wide forehead as a sign of intelligence and spiritual beauty. To get this look, women who weren't born with a high hairline decided to take matters into their own hands. The most common way was plucking. Women would painstakingly pluck their hairlines, one hair at a time, sometimes removing inches of hair to make their foreheads look higher. And they didn't stop there. To get that perfect oval face, they also plucked their eyebrows into thin, high arches, and sometimes even plucked out their eyelashes completely. It was an agonizing and incredibly slow process. For those looking for a slightly less torturous, though still dangerous, solution, there were special hair removal recipes. One 16th century recipe from the Italian noblewoman Caterina Sforza, which claimed to make hair fall out and never grow back, called for a mix of egg whites, lead, and bat's blood. The obsession with a bare, high forehead was so common that it's a defining feature in the art of the period. Portraits by artists like Leonardo da Vinci and Botticelli often show women with these unnaturally high, plucked hairlines, cementing the trend as the height of aristocratic beauty. By the 19th century, the ideal look had changed again. The Victorian era was obsessed with fragility and delicacy. The perfect woman was pale, with flushed cheeks and large, bright eyes, a look that was eerily similar to that of someone suffering from tuberculosis, which was then called consumption. One of the darkest secrets to getting this sickly chic look was actually eating arsenic. Yes, the poison. Women could buy small, decorative complexion wafers that were laced with arsenic and nibble on them. In small doses, arsenic is a potent toxin that can cause skin to lose its pigment, creating a ghostly pale complexion. These wafers were advertised as a miracle cure for freckles, pimples, and other blemishes. But the line between a beautifying dose and a lethal one was paper thin. Chronic use led to vomiting, hair loss, kidney damage, and eventually, a slow and painful death. At the same time, women were literally reshaping their bodies with another instrument of torture, the corset. While corsets had been around for centuries, the Victorians took tight lacing to a new extreme. The goal was an exaggerated hourglass figure with a waist as tiny as possible, sometimes cinched down to a mere 16 inches. To achieve this, corsets were reinforced with steel and laced so tightly that they severely restricted breathing, often causing women to faint. Over time, this constant pressure did horrific damage. It deformed the rib cage, misaligned the spine, and weakened back muscles so much that women could barely sit up without the corset support. Internally, organs were squished and displaced. The liver could be shoved out of place, and digestion was so badly affected that it led to chronic health problems. For the sake of a fashionable silhouette, women were crushing themselves from the inside out. Just when you think things can't get any weirder, history delivers. Let's go back to ancient Rome and Greece, where some beauty treatments weren't just dangerous, but just plain gross. For a youthful glow, wealthy women would take mud baths mixed with crocodile dung. That's right, crocodile excrement was believed to have anti-aging properties and was a key ingredient in facials and skin whiteners. And if that wasn't strange enough, wealthy Roman women had another must-have cosmetic, gladiator sweat. Sweat scraped from the bodies of victorious gladiators was sold in little pots and applied as a facial cream. People believed it improved the complexion and even worked as an aphrodisiac. Imagine paying top dollar for a vial of a sweaty fighter's perspiration to smear on your face. The use of bodily fluids wasn't just limited to Rome, either. In some cultures, human urine was used as a mouthwash to whiten teeth and as a hair rinse to add shine, thanks to its ammonia content. These practices all point to a simple, if unsettling, truth. Throughout history, if someone believed something could make you more beautiful, no matter how bizarre, dangerous, or disgusting, someone, somewhere, was willing to try it. From lead-laced makeup and arsenic wafers to broken feet and crushed ribs, the history of beauty is one of extremes. These rituals tell us a lot about the societies that practiced them, what they valued, what they feared, and how they were structured. They show us what a culture prized, whether it was the idleness of the rich, the fragility of the sick, or the painful discipline of fitting in. And while we might look back and shudder at these practices, it also makes you look in the mirror. We may have swapped lead for lip fillers and corsets for extreme diets, but that basic drive to change our bodies to fit some ideal is still very much with us. It makes you wonder, what are we doing right now that future generations will look back on with shock and disbelief? Which of these deadly beauty rituals did you find the most shocking? Are there any crazy ones we missed? Let us know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this journey into the dark side of beauty, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next video.